welcome back. So if you know me, then you know that I love audiobooks. I've been listening to audiobooks since I was a very small child, and I have tried out a ton of audiobook apps. Today I'm going to be talking about the latest audiobook service that I have tried, which is Libro FM, and I'm going to talk about my thoughts on the good, the bad, the ugly, what I like, what I don't like, and my overall recommendations for this app. So if you want to hear all that, then just keep watching. So before we get into the juicy details, I just want to say I do have a referral link for Libro FM, which will give you a discount. I believe it will give you an extra audiobook for free if you sign up for a membership, but I will put all the latest details in the description box, so definitely check that out. Okay, so first let's just set the stage of what is Libro FM? Why are we even talking about this? Well, basically Libro FM is an audiobook service. It's an audiobook store, basically, very similar to services like Audible or audiobooks.com. However, kind of the twist of Libro FM is it's kind of like the independent bookseller's answer to Audible. Basically, when you sign up for a Libro FM account, it will prompt you to choose which bookstore you want to support. So you can support any local bookstores, any indie bookstores that are on the list. You can choose bookstores that maybe you aren't able to visit in person. Maybe you're not geographically close to that bookstore, but you can choose any one you want, which I think is really cool. How it works is every time you buy a book through their service, either 10 or 15% of the sale will go to the local bookstore that you choose. It's 10%, I believe, if it's part of a subscription, and 15% for standalone book purchases. The price of Libro FM is very comparable to the big players in the market. It's very similar to Audible or audiobooks.com, for example. Basically, they have a recurring membership, which will give you one audiobook every single month for $14.99. Plus, you can buy additional audiobooks beyond that one per month for a 30% discount, which is pretty cool. Now, when you buy audiobooks from Libro FM, you do keep the audiobook, so it's not like you have to have an active membership in order to access your audiobooks. You keep them forever after you purchase them. It's basically the equivalent of buying a physical book in a store. However, obviously, this is the audio version of that book. Now let's talk about the selection of audiobooks. I would say the selection is quite good. They say they have over 150,000 audiobooks, and I found that all of the new releases and things like that I was looking for were available on the service, so I really have no complaints about the selection. However, the one big caveat of the selection is you do not have access to any type of exclusive content, and we'll talk a little bit about that more at the end of this video when I talk about the negatives that I had of this service. So now let's talk about perhaps what is the most important part of the review, and that is, what is the actual experience like listening to audiobooks using the app? What is the app experience like? I would say overall the app experience is quite good. It has all of the normal bells and whistles that you would expect for an audiobook service. So it has like a sleep timer, it has the ability to bookmark, it also has the ability to speed up your listening speed, which is something that I really appreciate, and I also really like that it goes all the way up to 3.5 speed, which is very much appreciated. The only thing that I don't like about the speed feature is they don't have as many distinct speeds as, for example, Audible, who now has the ability to change the speed to every 1/10 of a point. Libro FM does go in like larger chunks, which is kind of the old way that Audible used to do it. So it's not quite as good, but not a deal breaker in my opinion either. The only other negative that I found of the app, other than not having the specific speeds, is you also don't have the ability to actually buy books directly on the app. You do have to go to the desktop version of the website, which is not a huge deal, but for me, sometimes I'm just on the go and I would much rather just buy a book directly from the app, which is something that Audible allows you to do. So I do wish they had that, but again, not a deal breaker from the app experience. With any service, there always is going to be some negatives and some things that I think you should keep in mind if you are thinking about this service. So the first big negative that I want to point out is with Libro FM, you do not get any type of exclusive content specific for Libro FM. So a big selling point that other audiobook services like Audible use to attract customers is they have this giant library of exclusive Audible content where basically if you want to get access to these certain books or Audible original content, you have to have an Audible membership, and you actually do get some amount of included free content included in the membership included in just that one credit price. Now, Libro.fm has actually taken kind of a stance, like a moral stance against exclusive content like this. They basically say that it's bad for authors, bad for booksellers, and it's kind of a way for kind of the behemoth Audible, which is owned by Amazon. It's basically the way for this megacorp to kind of like bully players in the industry, authors, publishers. It's kind of their way to bully these smaller guys like the authors and the publishers to, provide this exclusive content, even when it may not be actually what is best for that author or that publisher, but it's kind of the price to be in the game with Audible and the price for them to really promote your work. Personally, I do see some of that argument. I think that there are definitely problems with exclusive content. Personally, I don't necessarily have as much of a moral stand against it. I think that exclusive content doesn't have to be this evil thing. It's something that's very common with many services like Netflix, Hulu, all of these services have exclusive content. And I think if authors want to put exclusive content on the platform, they normally would do it in exchange for a bit more promotion from Audible or from Amazon. However, I don't necessarily know all the dark underbelly of this industry, so I can definitely see why it could be problematic for the industry as a whole to have this behemoth kind of pressuring authors and book publishers to have this exclusive content. So basically with Libro.fm, you do not have any exclusive content, which as a reader is definitely a negative. However, I'm sure many of you will happily make that trade-off in order to support local bookstores and not support Amazon and their exclusive content program through Audible. However, it is a con. It is something to think about that will potentially be a negative if you do want to use Libro.fm. My other big negative with Libro.fm is I feel like they kind of are missing an opportunity to have more of an integration with the local booksellers. So I think the biggest benefit for me of going to a local bookstore is you get kind of that curated experience. You get the curated recommendations from the local booksellers. You maybe get books that are relevant to your local area or books that kind of have the personality infused from the bookshop. However, I feel like with Libro.fm, there's not really that much integration from a consumer side with these stores. So several times while I was using the service, I changed the bookshop that I was associated with, where my money was going, and the experience on the website did not change at all. There was no local recommendations from those stores. There were some like booksellers recommendations, but they were just like random booksellers. They weren't the ones that I had actually chosen. So I kind of feel like this service ends up being, I don't know, like I don't necessarily want to say it like this, but it's almost like a charity where like you're giving money to the booksellers, but you're not necessarily getting anything in exchange for that. Like you're not getting any added value that the booksellers are providing. And I think that's totally fine. I think that doesn't make it a bad service. I think in a lot of ways it makes it an amazing service, but just keep that in mind that you're not necessarily going to get any benefit of having that connection with a local bookstore that you would if you actually went into the bookstore and bought a book directly from them in person. Now, the final thing I just want to say as a negative is they do have quite an extensive list of local bookstores that you can select from, but it's not comprehensive. My initial first choice of local bookstore was not available, so you may have to choose like your second or third choice. Again, not a big deal, but just a potential negative that you may run into if you use this service. Overall, I think if you don't really care about exclusive content or you're actually a kind of person who wants to take a stand against exclusive content, I think this service is really a great service. I think the price is good, the selection is good, you can also support your local bookstores, and that's it. Bye guys.